All praise to the Most High, Ahaya, and to his son, YAHAYASHA, AHAYAH. This is Brother Holly with the second Spirit of Truth broadcast here on the AHAYAH'S channel, as well as the House of Ahaya channel, on this set-apart Shabbat day. First and foremost, as always, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honor to the great I Am, he who is, was, and is to come, the Almighty One, AHAYAH, and to his son, YAHAYASHA, who gave himself for us that we might have life, and that life is in him, AHAYAH. Now, let me adjust my chair. Children, I'm going to try to be brief with this second broadcast, but we got to touch on something from the Apostle Saul's writings that we've talked about it in several ways here on these channels. I know I've gone over this before because I see this highlighted in my book of scriptures, but I saw something recently, children, on how one particular thing that we do fulfills so much of what we should be doing, and that is walking in love or walking in the Spirit. Now, you've heard me on more than one occasion say that I refuse to debate anybody. I refuse to get in arguments with anybody. I refuse to get in strife with anybody. I make a big point to talk about walking in temperance, being self-controlled in your behaviors. I make a big point about not walking in drunkenness, not being a whoremonger, all these things. And in their individuality, it looks like I'm just highlighting certain things to the abandonment of others. No, I'm just bringing out various aspects of what we would call walking in the Spirit or not walking in the flesh. For the Apostle Saul, whom we all trust, who the world ignorantly calls Paul, he said it this way: if you walk in the Spirit, you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. That is a revelation if you let it become so. And if you walk in the Spirit, you fulfill the righteousness of the law at the same time. Two things, two monumentous things are accomplished. Because if you walk in accordance to the righteousness of the law, and you're not walking according to the dictates of the flesh, there will be nothing stopping you from entering the kingdom. And we're going to see that in a moment. That if you fail to walk in the Spirit, if you fail to walk in love, and you fulfill the lust of your flesh, you shall not enter the kingdom. But if you walk in love, if you walk in the Spirit, you fulfill the law for righteousness. And without righteousness, you can't enter the kingdom. So we're going to go over it from Saul's epistles. We'll be reading from the Learned Paleo Hebrew Torah, Lashon Kodesh Holy Tongue, Yeshaya, Ahaya Bible Scriptures. Turn me to Romans chapter 8. This is very familiar, but we got to go over it. Romans chapter 8, let's start reading at verse 1. It says, there is therefore now no condemnation to them that are in Son YAHAYASHA, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit, will you highlight. So we learn something else from this one particular verse about walking in the Spirit and walking after the flesh. That if you are walking after the flesh, or walking in the Spirit, I should say, then there's no condemnation for you. You won't be condemned. Oh, praises. Let's read it again. It says, there is therefore now no condemnation to them that are in Son YAHAYASHA. And this is the condition of somebody who is in the Messiah, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit, will you highlight. If you're in the Messiah, you're not going to walk after the flesh. You're going to walk after the Spirit, or you're going to walk in love. For you will see from the Sauline epistles that walking in the Spirit and walking in love are synonymous. And as I mentioned in the first broadcast, if I seem a little more nasally or seem like I'm talking funny, because I have a dental issue going on right now, and I'm in some pain. So I'm trying to just troop through it. And thank you for your patience and your understanding. And I got some swelling going on too in my face. So forgive me, y'all. Pray for me. Romans chapter 8, verse 2. For the law of the Spirit of life in Messiah, YAHAYAH'S, has made me free from the law of sin and death. Now, we've talked about on these channels what is exactly the law of sin and death. It's found in the book of Ezekiel. The soul that sins, it shall die. That's the law of sin and death. Well, you said just now in your head, well, Brother Holly, everybody sinned. Well, you've been made free from sin. The day you became a follower and got in Yahshua, Messiah, you left the being under the law of sin and death, and now you're under the law of the Spirit of life in Yahayasha, Messiah. And that law of the Spirit of life is ministering something else to you besides death. That law is ministering eternal life to you and to me. We have eternal life right now. It's been placed in us. It's the earnest of the expectation of being glorified. The knowledge, that inward witness that we've been born anew. We've been born again. Not of corruptible seed, but by incorruptible. By the word of AHAYAH, which lives and abides forever. The living word is in your living spirit, passing on to you eternal life. We've passed from death unto life because we love the brethren. He that doesn't love his brother abides in death. You still under the law of sin and death. You don't love your brother. And as I mentioned in the first broadcast, and I'll say it again right now, if you can sit idly by while your brother and sister is being subsequently murdered by a bunch of people who don't believe in the Messiah, who are antichrist. That's what an antichrist person is, one who doesn't believe in the Messiah. There's a whole nation of them bombing the living daylights out of your brother and sister in the Gaza Strip. The believers in Messiah who are in the Gaza Strip. Some of them are Afro-Hebrews, like me and you, if you're an Afro-Hebrew. And they believe in the Messiah. They follow after the truth. They're recipients of eternal life. They have been born anew as well. And if you're consenting to their death, woe be it unto you. I am not consenting unto their death. I'm praying that their lives be spared. That the Most High's angels intervene right now if it have to shoot down them aircraft coming to kill them. May those aircraft just fall to the ground and blow up, trying to kill them. May every round designed for them miss. In the name of YAHAYAH'S. So be it. Romans chapter 8, verse 3. For what the Torah law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, AHAYAH sent his own son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh will you highlight. YAHAYAH'S coming did not make you able to sin without consequence. Oh no. YAHAYAH'S coming made sin indeed sinful. YAHAYAH'S coming, him being the one sacrifice forever for sin, made a sinful lifestyle a condemned lifestyle. He said in John chapter 3, in that unreliable gospel of John, in chapter 3, it says that you don't believe that in him, you're condemned already. And he said, this is the condemnation. Light, speaking of himself, has come into the world. But men love darkness rather than light because their deeds are evil. And he said they won't come to the light lest their evil deeds be reproved. See, if you're still walking in darkness, if you're still fulfilling the lust of the flesh and not walking in the spirit, for the Apostle Saul, in whom we all trust, said in Galatians chapter 6 that it's impossible to do both. If you're walking in the spirit, you won't fulfill the lust of the flesh. And if you're walking in the flesh, you will not fulfill the righteousness of the law through walking in the spirit. These two things are contrary one to another, so that you can't do both. You can rest assured that if you're walking in the spirit, that you're fulfilling the righteous requirements of the law, that you are exhibiting the fact that you have eternal life in your spirit, that you've been born anew, and you are free from the propensity to walk after the flesh. That when you do these things, there ain't no law against it. There ain't no law against love. There ain't no law against being gentle. There ain't no law against being merciful. There ain't no law against having temperance. There ain't no law against being patient, being good, walking that way, being at peace one with another. There ain't no law against peace. Peace is in favor of the law. Romans 8:4, that the righteousness of Torah law might be fulfilled in us. Here it is. Who walk not after the flesh, but after the spirit, will you highlight. So the righteousness of Torah is fulfilled in us when we walk after the spirit. When we do the things that the Apostle Saul said are walking in the spirit. We fulfill the righteousness of Torah. For all those people who keep telling you, no one can keep Torah. Just take them right here to Romans 8. Say everybody that walks in the spirit is keeping the righteousness of Torah. What are you talking about? And the Apostle Saul, who the world illiterally calls Paul, stated in Galatians chapter 6, if you're walking in the spirit, you cannot be walking in the flesh. Because these two things are contrary one to another. We're going to read it in a minute. I'll read it again. Romans chapter 8, verse 4, that the righteousness of Torah law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the spirit. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh. But they that are after the spirit, the things of the spirit will you highlight. The things that tend toward righteousness. If you're walking in the spirit, you'll do and tend toward the things and do the things that tend toward righteousness. If you're walking in the flesh, you'll do and tend toward the things that bring about death, that cause you to sin. You'll have a propensity towards sin if you're walking in the flesh. But if you're walking in the spirit, you'll have a propensity toward righteousness, things that tend toward life. All praises. Romans 8:6, for to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Will you highlight? What is a spiritual mind? Did the Apostle Saul, whom we all trust, describe it? Yes, he did. Hold your place in Romans 8. We're going back. But we're going to Philippians right now. We're going to see what a spiritual mind is like. Philippians chapter 4. Verse 8 and 9. And for all those out there who said, well, you just pulling verses out of context. You're pulling that out of context. You're exactly right. Because the word context means the content of the text. When I read these things from the content of the text, when I read them, I pull them out of context or the content of the text and I read it into your hearing. So when you say, I'm taking it out of context, you're correct. I've always taken everything that I read in the context. When I speak it, when I read it into your hearing, I'm taking it out of context and putting it in your ears. That's how learning happens. So for all of you who will get confronted with people saying that you're taking something out of context, remember what I just said. Of course you are. And they do it too. If they read anything into someone else's hearing, they do it too. They're taking it out of the content of the text and putting it into the hearing of another, or taking it out of context. So, for all of you who are saying that, you're exactly right. I'm about to do it right now. Let's take Philippians chapter 4, verses 8 and 9 out of context by reading it into the hearing of the listeners. All praises. Let's go. Philippians 4 and 8 and 9. It says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true. Now, we're describing what a spiritual mind is like. For to be spiritually minded is life and peace, according to Romans 8. Here the Apostle Saul, whom we all trust, who the world ignorantly calls Paul, is telling us what a spiritual mind is like. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just or righteous, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue or moral excellence, or if there be any praise, think on these things. Those things which you have both learned and received and heard and seen in me do. And the AHAYAH of peace shall be with you. Will you highlight? As the great apostle Saul says, I'm saying it. The things that you've both learned from Brother Holly, received of me, heard from me, or seen me do it too. And the AHAYAH of peace shall be with you. All praises. Remember, I just took that out of context, or out of the content of the text. I want each and every one of you on the daily to take the scriptures out of context. I want you to read it into the hearing of others. Let the words of your mouth and the meditation of your heart be acceptable unto AHAYAH. How? By reading his word into the ears of the hearers, if they forbey or if they don't. Back to Romans 8. All praises. We'll read it again. Romans 8 and 6. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. And we read what a spiritual mind is like in Philippians chapter 4, verses 8 and 9. All praises. Because, Romans 8:7, because the carnal mind is enmity against AHAYAH, for it is not subject to the Torah law of AHAYAH, neither indeed can be. Will you highlight? It didn't say it's not subject to faith. No, a carnal mind is not subject to Torah. A spiritual mind will have you fulfilling Torah. Walking in the Spirit, you'll fulfill Torah. We're going to read that in a moment. Now, Constantine Christians will have you believe that this doesn't say that. And we've already established what taking something out of context means. So they're not saying anything smart when they say that to you. Matter of fact, they're agreeing with you without realizing it. Yeah, I know. A lot of their little minds going to go tilt when you explain that one to them. But all praises. Let's read it again. Romans chapter 8:7. Because the carnal mind is enmity against AHAYAH, for it is not subject to the Torah law of AHAYAH, neither indeed can be. a carnal mind or a flesh or after the flesh person, a person walking in the flesh, is the enemy of Ahaya and his friend. You're not a disciple or one that's disciplined unto YAHAYAH'S neither. What did YAHAYAH'S say about being his disciple? If you continue in my word, you are my disciples indeed. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And the freedom he was talking about is being free from sin, which is the transgression of the law. But we just coming to the understanding that if you're walking in the Spirit, you're fulfilling the righteousness of the law. And you can't do both. You can't be walking after the flesh and sinning and walking in the Spirit, fulfilling the righteousness of Torah at the same time. You can't do both. You're either doing one or the other. And if you give yourself wholly to it, completely to it, you will always, in all times, in every place, walk in the Spirit. For a person who's been born from above, a person with Messiah in your heart, a person you're a new creature. Old things have passed away, behold, everything become new. It's first nature. It ain't second nature. It's first nature for you to walk in the Spirit. Because you've been born of a higher spirit. I'll read one more time. Romans 8:7, because the carnal mind is enmity against Ahaya. For it is not subject to the Torah law of Ahaya, neither indeed can be. So then, they that are in the flesh cannot please Ahaya. Where you highlight? Verse 9, but you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. We highlight. So we're not in the flesh. Next time somebody call you a sinner, say, I'm not in the flesh. I'm in the Spirit. And take them right here and read. Just take them right here and read. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of Ahaya dwells in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Messiah, he is none of his. We highlight. So you can't belong to the Messiah. You can't say you belong to the Messiah and be walking in the flesh. That's an impossibility. If you belong to the Messiah, you're going to be walking in the Spirit. That's proof positive of the indwelling power of the Ruach HaKodesh. All praises. I read one more time. Romans 8:9. Listen to Saul speaking by the Spirit. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of Ahai dwelleth in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Messiah, he is none of his. And if Messiah be in you, the body is dead because of sin. Now, Messiah in you, the body dead. You're dead indeed unto sin, alive unto Ahai through YAHAYAH'S our Master. All praises. You follow it, what the Master says. You do what's pleasing to the Father. You walk in the Spirit. If these things be in you, in truth and righteousness. All praises. I read it again. Romans 8:10. And if Messiah be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit is life because of righteousness. What righteousness? The righteousness of Torah law, which is being fulfilled when you walk in the Spirit. But if the Spirit of him that raised up YAHAYAH'S from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Messiah from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his Spirit that dwells in you. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. We are debtors, but we're not debtors to the flesh to live after the flesh. The flesh life ain't never did nothing for us but minister death to us. Verse 12 again. Romans 8:12, therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if you live after the flesh, you shall die. Get it through your thick skull. You're going to hell if you live after the flesh. But if you through the Spirit do mortify, put to death the deeds of the body, you shall live. You will go into the kingdom. Praises. For as many are led by the Spirit of Ahayah, they are the sons of Ahayah. We ain't done yet. Turn over to Romans chapter 12. I'm sorry, Romans 13. And we just read we debtors, right? Forgive me. We just read we're debtors, correct? We're going to see what we owe other people. We're going to see what our debt is to humanity in just a moment. Romans chapter 13, verse 7, let's read. Render therefore to all their dues. Tribute to whom tribute is due. Custom to whom custom. Fear to whom fear. Honor to whom honor. We highlight. Render to all their due. Tribute to whom tribute is due. Taxes to whose taxes are due. Pay the man. Custom to whom custom is due. Say ma'am or sir to a person that's customary to say ma'am or sir to. Fear to whom fear is due. If you're supposed to be reverenced to them, be reverenced to them. Honor to whom honor is due. If someone's honorable, then show forth that. Treat them in an honorable fashion. That's not so hard. It's a pretty simple rule to follow. Verse 8, owe no man anything but to love one another. We highlight. See, we are debtors. But what is our debt to humanity? To love one another. I shouldn't owe anybody anything but my love. And my earnest care for their betterment. And the Apostle Saul is about to describe how you walk in love or walk in the Spirit. Let's read. Romans 13:8, owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another has fulfilled the Torah law. We highlight. Hold on. It said over in Romans 8, if you walk in the Spirit, you fulfill the Torah law. Here it's saying if you're walking in love toward another, you're fulfilling the Torah law. As I said previously, walking in the Spirit, walking in love are synonymous. They both accomplish the same thing. You fulfill the righteous requirements of Torah. And it's gonna give you a blow by blow of how to walk in love. Let's see it. Verse 8 again, Romans 13:8. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loves another has fulfilled the Torah law. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery. Or because of this, thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. Will you highlight? He just rattled off 5 out of 10. I ain't said if there be any other commandment, love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's comprehended. It's understood that how you fulfill it is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Wow. I thought we couldn't keep the law. I thought it was impossible. If you listen to these Constantine Christians, you can't keep the law. It says right here you can. If you just walk in love, you're keeping it. I'll read it again. Romans 13:8. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another has fulfilled the Torah law. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. If there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love works no ill to his neighbor. If what you're doing is working ill towards your neighbor, you're not walking in love. If what you're doing is working ill towards your neighbor, you're not walking in the Spirit. If what you're doing is working ill towards your neighbor, you're walking in the flesh. But if what you're doing is working no ill to your neighbor, you're walking in love and fulfilling the Torah law. Let's read it. Romans 13:10. Love works no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of Torah law. How do you fulfill Torah law? Do nothing ill toward anybody. Love them. And love works no ill. If you're wondering if this is good for them or this is going to work them harm, do what's good for them. Or be like a physician, do no harm. If you can't do nothing, do no harm. And those of you who know of the Hippocratic Oath, you know what I'm talking about. Verse 11, Romans 13:11, and that knowing the time that it is now high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. It's time to be woke. It's time to wake up. It's time to be woke. The Apostle Saul, whom we all trust, said in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, he says, awake to righteousness and sin not. Wake up to righteousness, child. Wake up to walking in the Spirit, child. Wake up to walking in love, child. Wake up to not fulfilling the lust of the flesh, child. Wake up to fulfilling the righteous requirements of the law and going into the kingdom. That knowing the time, that it is now high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness. How many more ways can we say it? Since the day has come, the day of salvation, all praises. Let's cast off the works of darkness. And let us put on the armor of light. Verse 13, Romans 13:13. Let us walk honestly, as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness and sexual promiscuity and sensuality, not in strife or envy, but put on the Master YAHAYASHA Messiah and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. Will you highlight? He just gave you a laundry list of things that are after the flesh, that did. Drunkenness, sexual immorality, strife, envy. It says, put on Yahayasha, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill its lust. How do you make provision for the flesh? Well, I'll give you a simple one. Are you buying alcohol in case your neighbor's wife come over? So you can get a little tipsy so you can commit adultery with her? That's making provision for the flesh. Are you getting a hotel room for your floozy, for your side chick? Meet your side chick or your side dude. Are you? You're making provision to fulfill the lust of the flesh. Are you setting money aside so you can go see the dope man or the dope woman? You're making provision to fulfill the lust of the flesh. Yeah, that's what you're doing. What's the remedy for that? Romans 13:14. But put on the Master YAHAYASHA Messiah and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. Now that's a lot, but we ain't done yet. No, let's go. Told you we were going over. I'm sorry, I said Galatians chapter 6, didn't I? If I remember correctly. Galatians chapter 5. Galatians 5, let's start reading at verse 13. For brethren, ye have been called unto liberty. Only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. You're to use your liberty, your freedom in YAHAYAH'S, not to see what you can get away with, but to use your freedom, your liberty in YAHAYAH'S to love and serve one another. Let's read it again. For brethren, this is Galatians chapter 5, verse 13. For brethren, ye have been called unto liberty. Only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. For all the Torah law is fulfilled in one word, even in this: thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. We just read that in Romans chapter 13. The same thought was communicated. Then it's being reiterated now. If you love your neighbors, you love yourself, you fulfill all the righteous requirements of Torah. Let's read it one more time. For all the Torah law is fulfilled in one word, even this: thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But if you bite and devour one another, take heed that you be not consumed one of another. If you're biting and devouring one another, you're not walking in love. You're not loving your neighbor as you love yourself, unless you got some kind of bite fetish where you bite yourself. And that's not literally biting. It might be. Doesn't have to be, though. But if you're always at somebody, being argumentative, mean-spirited, trying to destroy somebody, take heed. Should be not consumed. Galatians chapter 5, verse 16. This I say then, walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Will you highlight? There's the cure. There's the cure to walking after the flesh. What's the cure, Brother Holly? It's real simple. Walk in the spirit, or walk in love toward others. All praises. If you do that, you fulfill the righteous requirements of Torah. If you do that, you fulfilled all the Torah. Wow. And you're not fulfilling the lust of the flesh. I'll read it again. Galatians chapter 5, verse 16. This I say then, walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that you would. Like I told you, it's impossible for you to do both at the same time. You cannot be walking in the flesh and walking in the spirit, or walking in the spirit and walking in the flesh at the same time. These things are contrary. These things are diametrically opposed one to another. You can't do them both. I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a pro tip. Walk in the spirit. Walk in the spirit, you will accomplish fulfilling all the righteous requirements of Torah, and you will make it impossible for you to walk in the flesh. This life of Messiah really ain't that hard, child. It's just that easy. The Apostle Saul laid it all out for us by the Spirit. Wow. I read verse 17 again. Galatians chapter 5, verse 17. For the flesh lusts against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these things are contrary one to another, so that ye cannot do the things that you would. But if you are led by the Spirit, ye are not under the Torah law. What Torah law are you not under if you're walking in the Spirit? The law of sin and death. We talked about that. The soul that sins, it shall die. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery. If you're loving your neighbor, you won't be sleeping with your neighbor's wife. If you're walking charitably towards your neighbor, you won't be sleeping with your neighbor's wife. Fornication. You won't be floozing it up if you're walking in love. Uncleanness. You won't be practicing and doing things and eating things that are unclean if you're walking in love. lasciviousness, or unrestrained lifestyle. You won't be partying like it's 1999 if you're walking in love. You're walking in the Spirit. You won't be doing it. These are the works of the flesh. Idolatry, witchcraft. And in this book of scripture, it has pharmaceuticals in parentheses by witchcraft. Hatred, variance, emulation, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies. All these things are after the flesh. And if you're walking in the Spirit, you're not going to be walking in heresy. You'll be walking in all the truth. You won't be in strife with people if you're walking in the Spirit, because you'll be walking in love towards your neighbor. You won't be walking as a seditionist. You won't be plotting nobody's demise. You won't be walking in hatred. You'll be walking in love. Envyings. You won't be envying your oppressor or anyone else if you're walking in the Spirit. This is the walking in the flesh life. The walking in the flesh life, you envious of everybody. Murderers, drunkenness, reveling, and such like. Such like things are not listed here. There are other lists. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 and 10. Romans chapter 2. There are other lists. This ain't all inclusive. That's why I say and such like. Of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Ahayah. Well, you highlight. If you're walking in envy, you're not going to inherit the kingdom. If you're walking in murder, you got a murderous spirit. Like those fakers and frauds in the Middle East, just indiscriminately killing people, seeking vengeance. You're walking in vengeance. You're not walking in the Spirit. You're walking in the flesh, and you ain't going into the kingdom. Not with that spirit. Why? Why be vengeful? I didn't read that. That's such like. We learned in the first broadcast that vengeance ain't yours. Mine either. Vengeance belongs to Ahayah. You've been overcome with evil if you're seeking vengeance. You ain't getting in the kingdom like that. I'll read it one more time. Galatians chapter 5, verse 21. Envy and murders, drunkenness, reveling, and such like, and of the which I tell you before, and I have told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Ahayah. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance, or self-control. Against us there is no law. There ain't no law against you being holy. Ain't no law against you walking in faith. Ain't no law against you walking in meekness. Ain't no law against you being peaceful, having self-control. Ain't no law against that. Verse 24, and they that are Messiah have crucified the flesh with its affections and lusts. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. If you're walking in the Spirit, you're fulfilling the righteous requirements of the law, you're walking in love toward your neighbor, and you too shall be ushered into the kingdom. All praise to the Most High, Ahayah, and to his Son, YAHAYAH'S. Hadah, Hayah.